I don't remember dropping out of high school at 15 being an issue. Let's not make it one. There were no tears. In fact, I'd call it a positive. It might be the best decision anyone ever made for me. And by anyone, I mean me, my parents, the principal, 4 or 5 teachers, and maybe a parent or 10. If I had to give an Oscar speech in thanks, they'd be pulling me off stage for time. My trajectory walked through the right door. The butterfly was stepped on. Fork in the road taken. Here goes my parenting advice on school versus life. This advice comes with a warning and a disclaimer. If your kid is doing great, skip to the next paragraph or read for laughs. This advice is only for the brave parent with a fucked up kid like me. Everything will work out, but be warned. It ain't easy for about 15 years, about as long as it takes to get your high school diploma, college degree, a master's, and maybe a PhD. Coincidental? Cheaper. The decision to drop out was made by that nice group of people on a nice, easy raft floating downstream. Metaphorically, rafts are relaxing, disarming. Water level is just below high. One more rain. Current is strong enough that no one needs to row. Float, sunny. She won't suspect a thing. Let's drop her off when we hit a bank. Any bank will do. Leave her a cooler? No, the woods have enough. A kiss and a push and a wave. Everyone floats back down the river. Everyone but me. Relaxed and happy round the bend. Out of sight. Relief. I'm on the bank. No one warned me, so there's nothing to fear. It all starts at 13 years old, 8th grade. I was 3 years on the other side of my parents' divorce. Enough time for it to sink in and mix with hormones. I need a drink and a smoke. Did they leave me any matches? They did.
My people, welcome back to not a Swervinn Podcast, but a Swervinn special, as we're here at the Ballpark Village. And you might know where I am, but we're about to unveil Katie Lee's story with the Katie Lee's book. And she's been dropping a book and dropping it in serial sections, so we'll be unveiling that and getting more into Katie as we unveil chapter 2 and 3 today. And welcome to the Swervinn special. Katie, how you doing?
Doing great. Good to see you.
You too. Chapter 2 is great. I feel like
you.
That's when you really get the crack into you. Living so fast at a young age, but, feeling seen, but, kind of just not feeling seen. What was kind of that journey of when that road was taken and that butterfly was stepped on?
Oh, it was hard. I mean, I was very young and I had a couple of options, as you can read in chapter 1. One was to stay in school and be like a 19, 20-year-old senior. And one was to drop out and start living in the real world. So we all kind of decided option 2 would be best. So I didn't, you're young, you don't really know what's going on, but obviously what was happening in my life was too overwhelming. My parents divorced, I'd started drinking and using drugs. I felt like I wasn't good in school, and so I just wanted to kind of escape it all. So dropped out and started working in restaurants, and that's what chapter 2 is about this young girl who's in the Central West End, working in these restaurants with all of these adults, and they kind of take me under their wing, and I learn about the real world really fast.
I feel it.
Yeah.
And so you talk about how you jumped on that raft, that easy raft or whatever.
Yeah.
Was it easy to say fuck school at a time where people, the crew you were with was already doing that? And what was your mindset at that time?
It was very unusual. There was no one else in my class who was doing that. I went to Clayton, everyone graduates. So I was probably the only one in the entire class who had done anything like that. But again, there wasn't a lot of decision making around it. We just all kind of decided you don't have any other options, so let's just make it easy and painless.
I feel that.
And you're done. You don't have to go tomorrow.
So you kind of, we'll get more into that, but I feel like I kind of did that, graduating through alternative school and stuff.
Yeah.
You kind of get that group of friends to where things are just complacent and you feel kind of just there in the time to where like, I get that sharp rock and kick your own self in the ass.
Yeah.
So both our parents divorced. Yours 13, mine 12. I feel like that's the age you kind of just start to really understand things as a kid.
It's hard because you're trying to figure out life, right?
Exactly.
And then your household split up. And my parents actually, they divorced at 10, but 13 was when I started to unravel. It took a couple of years.
What was happening?
Yeah, but we had this unusual setup where every other day we'd go back and forth. So I never woke up and went to bed in the same house. So it was pretty like chaotic. And I think that contributed. That started at 10 to like eventually at 13, drinking, doing drugs, stopped going to school. And so, yeah, my life just kind of unraveled. It was a lot for me. I didn't process it at the time as being difficult, but looking back, that was probably what happened.
So would you say 10 to 13 was kind of that gap that they were mending kind of just to make you more happy, but the household wasn't happy?
Yeah, no, the household wasn't happy. And my dad, as you'll read, had epilepsy. So he had a lot of brain damage. And with epilepsy comes a lot of confusion, depression, rage. And then his memory was gone. So it was all way too much for a little kid to handle.
I feel that.
Yeah, but a lot of kids got to handle a lot of stuff. I mean, that's life. And so some people go into certain things, sports or academics, and I just kind of went into drugs, unfortunately.
But now you're here and that's part of the journey. So Katie, in chapter 3, you talk about how you desire and, want a family that, builds. And now you got that within the restaurant and things. What's the importance of, building for your daughter and leaving a great legacy, but not a legacy that was infected by you not enjoying the restaurant industry? Because I feel like that could be toxic,
Yeah, no, family is tough. Like everyone says, don't work with your family, but I believe the opposite.
Mm-hmm.
I believe they're the only people that really know you, that you can trust, and also have the same upbringing. So like the same idea of, like for the restaurant, for example, we all grew up with art, food, the hustler, my dad.
Yeah.
So we all have that in us. So it's a beautiful experience for me. It's very hard sometimes. I've got 2 brothers that work with me, my mother. Sometimes we have had moments where we fight, but ultimately you can always count on them and trust them. And I think in this world, what we've all been through,
right,
that's what you need.
I heard that.
When I was in Italy, there was this incredible family that had built this empire. They were probably horrible, horrible people, but they owned all the banks, the Medicis.
Yeah, I got some questions about them.
Yeah, and when I was in Italy, it was like everything was built by this family, the Medicis, and I realized what the potential was for a family to build and how big and how great something can be when you all stick together. So I think that sunk in with me on a subconscious level that whatever I'm going to build has got to be with my family.
No, for sure.
And the greater it will become with that group.
And like we were just talking with divorced parents, like that's all. Not having those things, that's all you desire to be, because I just figure when you get into that, you don't want to be divorcing and wasting time, because you've already lived that, and that's how it becomes a problem within you and then your daughter and then her daughters and stuff, like you were talking about your dad's. I thought that was a cool read, so I want to ask you that. Katie, so I read about Bob and just kind of that situation of you meeting him. I thought that was really cool. I'm a believer of frequency in the world and like people you meet, and I feel like that was one of the moments within you. Do you feel like Bob was giving his younger self a chance within giving you a chance? Getting them reps and then going to Aunt Zoe's restaurant and being like, this is a whole different world. Like it's still like within what you had going on, trying. What was the importance of just staying in that headspace and just what you just keep seeing forward, because I feel like you could have gave up at any time.
Yeah, no, I had a lot of people like Bob and then Victor, but Bob was the first one that I was so insecure about being in this world. I was so shy. I was so nervous.
You said you were mute.
I was mute. Yeah, couldn't look you in the eye, couldn't talk to you. But I had this guy, Bob, who hired me at my first job at Crazy Bowls and Wraps, and I said he was allowed tan, flamboyant gay guy. And he wanted to be a young girl, and I wanted to be a confident, I wanted to be Bob, you know? So
Work the room.
He could work a room. He was super charismatic. And I think he sensed and probably saw himself when he was a young kid. Being a gay man in the 80s was extremely painful and difficult. And seeing this young girl who was in this new world, he took me under his wing, and he was kind of my shield to this world. And it was great because I had him to kind of hide behind, learn from. I learned incredible things about how to connect with people, customers, co-workers, all of that. But he was a really big personality, big soul. And you only meet so many people like that in your life. And I don't write about a ton
that you truly like hold on to.
I don't write about a ton of people, and I only worked with Bob for a year, but he's in this chapter. Like he left a mark in me.
You said the people go.
The people don't mean the place doesn't mean as much to me as the people. So when Bob was gone, I was gone too.
I definitely feel that. And when you wrote that, and I thought back to like the jobs I've had and careers and stuff, I'm like, through them journeys, you really do stick with one person or find that friend in the or find that friend in the dish pick. Like we'll talk about Victor. So it's just you get to learn more about you in this chapter.
So I got my reps in at Crazy Pulls and Wraps as a cashier. And then Zoe finally took me in, and I became a busser at Zoe Pan-Asia Cafe in the Central West End. And I am still really nervous. I have to actually do table service. I have to pour people's water, look them in the eye. They're like, come on, you can do it. But I start to look up, but not at the guests. I look up at Victor. And Victor was this just like another amazing person, but he was mean and he was tough and nobody liked him. But for some reason, I looked up and I saw this talented, beautiful human, and he saw me. And it was the same sort of situation where he was like, I'm going to protect this person. And I saw this beautiful, amazing man who was the funniest person I've ever met, the best cook. I talk about the difference between a cook and a chef. Mm-hmm. He was the best cook.
There's a big difference.
There's a big difference. Yeah, I say a cook it's the best word to describe it is reflex.
Yes.
Like it's
you just do.
They just do, and they don't even need to look. Yep. And it's perfect, right?
Yes, it is perfect.
This is a passage from chapter 2. I start as a busser and started looking people in the eye, not the guests, the cooks. I meet Victor. To this day, the best cook I've ever known. Zoe would say the same thing. There's a difference between a cook and a chef. Victor was the first to show me the difference, and it's not what you think. Nothing to do with hierarchy, little to do with skill. The only word I can think of is reflex. Like a hammer to the knee. The leg kicks without effort. The dumplings into the pan and right out when the hammer strikes and the butter coats. That's a cook. Victor was the best. A 45-year-old gay black man, lazy eye, or maybe it was dead, horrible drinking problem, bad jerry curl, worst case of gout, never accepted, always rejected, always in pain. Comedic genius wit level, top 0.001%. His skill in the kitchen, Olympic. He needed a friend but was too mean to get one. Maybe my age disarmed him, or maybe I was the boss's niece. Or he loved my mother, Belinda. Everyone who worked for Zoe loved Belinda. She was the front of house manager when Zoe had her babies. Made her special food. Fried chicken with fried potatoes, pan-fried in olive oil, flake salt, rosemary, my mom's favorite. My mom was elusive, quiet, stunning, an artist with wild hair. How can you not like that? Maybe Zoe didn't. Sisters. Everyone else did. Maybe that's why Victor liked her and me. The boss. Revenge. The reflex of being rejected your entire life. Protect the kid.
I know you love Victor because you guys both had those alley cat wounds, you know, like
Yeah.
them shifts, getting your ass kicked in and things like that. And, you know, the crate sessions in the alleys, you know, how important was he to you and just having that bond and just like staying, you know, grounded?
Oh, he was so important in not just staying grounded, but just feeling safe, you know? Like he was the toughest, he was the meanest, he was the coolest, and he loved me. So, you know, I talk about in this chapter, we both drank a lot. He had a drinking problem. I was developing a really bad drinking problem. And we would go to these bars in the city, and they were just like, you know, really tough places. And the fact that I was there, you know, this like young girl with this man, I think we looked really strange, but also nobody wanted to mess with us.
That wasn't society at the time.
That was not, no, not in the 90s. It was, but like we didn't notice. I was too young to notice or know what was going on, and he didn't give a fuck. So we hung out every night in these seedy gay bars in the city, and it was really special. I mean, it was bad because we're both, you know, drinking a lot, but I don't know, there's something about pain and being together with someone in like a painful moment in time where all the boundaries are gone.
Mm-hmm.
And I said people would stare in kind of disbelief, but we just didn't notice or care. And he just became like, one of the most influential people in my life, a really beautiful person. Once you got down to it, and he could be free to tell you about his life and his story. And he had great observations about the world and the people around us. Taught me a lot.
Most people don't have those alley cat scars that like make you really like understand life. And
you got to be fearless. And I think being young is one way to be fearless because you don't know any better. But then that teaches you when you're young and you don't know any better and you start hanging out with people that you otherwise shouldn't or society doesn't think you should, and you start to realize that they're more beautiful and impactful than the people that you're supposed to be hanging out with. It changes the course of your life because then you start to look at the world in a different way and realize that you're supposed to be connecting with those people that society doesn't want you to.
And kind of, you know, dropped out. But I feel like you're more dropped into reality, like, you know, dropping the fuck out and, hey, Katie, this is what you got to deal with.
That's the point.
But what was the importance of having those relationships, you know, with the guy that would walk this bike and didn't ride it, and most of the people that, you know, people wouldn't see you bonding with, and just having those, having those,
homeless heroin addict.
Having those bonds that, you know, make you understand the other side.
Yeah, I mean, that's the best education and the best that anybody could get. It's a dangerous education because there's potential for bad things to happen. But, you know, I got lucky by learning that the world isn't as dangerous as you think. And once you connect with a person, it doesn't matter where they're from. You can learn a lot. But no, that was the best education I could have ever gotten. If I would have gone away to college in a bubble, I would have never had those experiences. I'd be a totally different person. I'd be hiring different people. I'd be friends with different people. I'd be doing all kinds of different things, and I never get to see the beauty of what the world has, right?
Heard that.
Yeah.
And you talk about English 1 and, you know, bio class. I feel like, and it goes back to the beginning of the chapter, you know, your current was on different journeys, but it was speeding up. And I feel like every time it sped up, you would go, I wonder what your peers are learning. And that was just like, so, I feel like it was just funny, you know, just kind of like how you talk about fuck school, but you didn't need it because you're learning in life. You know, what was the difference in kind of just bringing yourself back to reality of like, you know what I got going on is my journey, and I appreciate that.
I wanted this chapter not to be about like, oh, this poor girl didn't finish high school, didn't go to college, and was in this like fucked up world. I wanted this chapter to be like, look at what can happen when someone embraces the pain and embraces the journey that they're in and decides to learn from it, and how beautiful life can become. So I always, like, throughout the chapter, I'll say, you know, I'll go through this experience and say, I wonder what they're learning in, you know, algebra right now. Knowing, and what I'm saying, it's a joke. Like, they're just in a bubble learning about math, and I'm in the real world, you know, dealing with tips, dealing with, you know, shifts, dealing with
putting action to plan.
Yeah, putting all of it to to plan. And So there's a lot of that through the chapter, is talking about how this experience was super beneficial, and I felt like I became light years ahead of my peers when they were in college.
So after all that journey, I feel like you got taxed out a little bit. You know, that comes with customer service.
Taxed out.
Is that kind of the high road to Breckenridge? And what was that kind of like?
So, you know, through all this learning, I got maxed out. I got on too many drugs, drinking too much, partying too much, didn't have anyone really watching over me. And I decided I'm going to move to Breckenridge. I've got an uncle there. I'm going to move to the mountains. And thought it's called a geographical change. You think the place is going to change your life, and you don't realize wherever you go, there you are, you know? So I go, and the problems are still there. And Breckenridge, I said, I'll keep it brief, but it was just a lot of drugs, hitchhiking.
Were you finding these people, or was it just like, because you weren't maybe not prioritizing the right things, like just kind of who you were bonding with at the time?
I think like a young girl, there's a predator situation, you know, the wrong people are attracted to, like, you know,
100%.
A young girl that has problems. I'm in a
manipulation,
a different state, in a resort town, and you know, it was just it's just everything spiraled from there. And I almost had, like, you know, a bottom out at like 19, which is young to bottom out. Usually people don't
that's
bottom.
That's the start.
That's supposed to be the start. And I just bottomed out there, sold a car, took the train home, and then said, okay, where am I going to go to get saved? And I knew my mother was in Italy, so I bought a ticket to Italy.
Mom is priceless when you're young and lost, as you say in chapter 2. In your context, your mom just wanted to see you alive in a time of being overwhelmed by the world, you would say. What would your advice be to those parents that were trying to stay sane in the process, like your mom, with kids that are struggling?
Oh, I don't know if I can give advice. We just got lucky. No, my mom was really good at giving me a lot of space. And I talk about in that chapter, the wild coyote, right?
Yeah.
She gave her and my father gave so much space that, you know.
Are you talking about when you met the kids in class?
I met the kids from WashU, from the study abroad program. So I'm living in Italy. My mom's teaching painting through Washington University study abroad program. And I talk about when I meet the kids, and it's like a dog in the yard. When the coyote comes into the yard, we both have fur and we both have the same bark, but something's different. She was good about giving us room to just be free. And I think that's, you know, part of being an artist is, like, creativity comes from a lot of freedom. Yeah.
I feel that. 19, you say you're ready for your master's, but never graduated, you know? A quick 4 years within life and reality. Would you say that, you know, what was the moment in Breckenridge you know you had to change shit for the better?
Probably not having anywhere to live. Sleeping on couches with like 20 people in a house, you know, stuff like that. Being hungry, for real. Like, that was probably one of the only moments in my life where I was like, I didn't have food, I didn't have a job, I'm sleeping on couches. I mean, I'm 19, so at 19 you can get away with that. You don't need a lot, and it's different than when you're older. But I was like, I gotta get to mom. And I say in this chapter, the ask for help starts years before you actually ask. Mm-hmm. I was not ready to get sober yet, but there was something inside of me that knew that I needed to, like, get to mom and start that process. And luckily she was in Italy, and when you're in Italy, everything slows down and life becomes really present. And so it was a good reprieve from the chaos of, you know, what was going on with me. I didn't have a drug dealer in Florence.
I feel that. So after putting the pen down and closing chapter 2, what would be one word to kind of like you processing everything in your writing?
I think gratitude. Gratitude that I was given that opportunity to experience such a crazy world at such a young age with freedom, you know, on my own, which is a really dangerous thing to do. but I got lucky. So gratitude that I made it through that and got to experience and learn from that. I think that's it. I think a lot of gratitude for that chapter. I think it shaped who I am. And it was a scary place to be, but I made it.
You made it.
Yeah.
We got more to talk about. This is Dropped Off, Dropped Out. A look into chapter 2 with Katie Lee, and we'll be back.
Thank you.
Yes.